Welcome back to the Sports Complex on the Horn. It is a Monday afternoon, and we've got a lot to catch up on over the weekend. Lots of news went down. There was a lot of news that happened at the end of Friday's show, so we got to catch up on that. We'll get into the NFL playoffs. NFL wrapping up Week 18. There wasn't supposed to be a lot of fireworks, but there were, and then some more today as coaches being fired. More coaches expected to be relieved of their duties. Also some late touchdowns, riling people up. We'll get into that. Talk a little NBA. Draymond Green's suspension is over. He talked about that, and we'll get into all of that. And I don't know if you know, there's a national championship game tonight, Michigan versus Washington. It's good. We'll talk about that game as well. Of course, with a lot of Texas football news thrown in as well. And Texas basketball takes a bad loss on Saturday as well. We'll recap that. Recap everything over the weekend and get to your text messages. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. If you guys want to talk about anything, hot takes, any questions or comments or what you got coming up after the show or after the weekend of sports and after what happened with NFL playoffs being set, if you have predictions for the NFL playoffs, predictions for the national championship game, make sure to throw all those in on the text line, 512-447-3776. You guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails. It was a good weekend. Got to see some friends, got to have a good time. Enjoyed watching a lot of games, and anytime the Texans make the playoffs, and, I'm back on the Texas bandwagon. If people don't know, I left the Texans bandwagon a few years ago. I was with them from the very beginning. When they formed the team, because I grew up and as a younger kid, I was an Oilers fan. I grew up, my family was Oilers fans, so I was an Oilers fan. When they left, I was a man without a team, and you tried to go around and see what you could find and who you were going to support. It ends up the Texans get a team as I'm starting to become a man, so I jump on board and I say I'm gonna be a Texans fan. Was with the Texans for a long time, and then in the Bill O'Brien era, I was getting more and more mad, and I'm not going to spend any money on these Texans until they fire Bill O'Brien, the DeAndre Hopkins debacle, and all of that. It just kept getting worse and worse. And then you bring in, I can't even remember his name now, but Littlefinger. That you bring in the jerk from the Patriots, the fake pastor who moved up, and I can't even remember his name now, which is a good thing. I see him tweet every once in a while, and everybody in Houston football just roast him, but you bring him in and it just gets worse and worse. And, you're tanking, but you're not getting the guys you want to get, and everything's not turning around, and you're not able to get what you want to have happen. So I basically just left the team until I wanted Cal McNair to sell the team, quite frankly, but eventually he seems to turn the corner. Jack Easterby is the name. I knew it would come to me. But eventually they end up selling, they get things going the right direction. I like the hire of DeMeco Ryans. I was a fan of his when he was on the Texans, so I was really happy with that hire. I was happy when they went all in the draft and said they're not screwing around anymore. They saw two guys they wanted, and they went after the two guys they wanted. Seemed to be the right pick on both of those. Getting in C.J. Stroud, who seems to be the guy. When you draft a quarterback, you're just hoping to know after a year or two. You're just hoping to know. You don't want to get stuck in that Desmond Ridder position of maybe there's glimpses. You want to know, is there a guy? And then you get a C.J. Stroud who has one of the best rookie seasons of any quarterback, and you see the potential of what he could possibly become there. You get Will Anderson, who, his senior season at Alabama wasn't as great. Some people thought he wasn't going to transfer to the NFL level. Seems to be doing great. Just got to be able to stay on the field, but that's another thing we talk about in college all the time, about getting your conditioning up to the level of play that you're in. And I know he came from a great program in Alabama, so it's not like he wasn't in in good condition and in good shape and in good muscles and all that and everything you got to have to be able to play at that level. But the reality was, getting to the NFL, you just have to change up your routines a little bit more. You're no longer a student athlete. You are now a 100% all of the time football player, so that kind of takes a different toll on your body, but he will continue to work on that. But they get those guys. You go get a guy like Tank Dell, who turns out to be great. Some of the guys like Nico Collins start to be figuring it out. The questions we had when they put this staff together, and it seemed like you really should have brought in somebody to be a part of this team that had some more experience, because basically everyone on this staff was doing the biggest job they'd ever done and was taking on a new role that was the biggest job they'd ever done. And there was no one to kind of lead everybody and help them along. And when you look at that, it's sometimes pretty scary. And you could tell, I think, at the beginning of the season with young players and young coaches that there was a big learning curve. However, that leaves you now saying, man, the future is bright. And yes, there's going to be a learning curve in the playoffs for the Texans as well. There's going to be that learning curve if you're able to overcome obstacles, if you can prepare correctly, if you're ready to host a game against a Cleveland team that has at least, maybe some people on the team that have a little bit more experience, even if the Browns are not necessarily the most experienced playoff team. You have to worry about that. But the future is bright for Houston. They, of course, win the game on Saturday evening, 23-19 over the Colts. It basically, they get the win there. That guarantees them a playoff spot. They're happy leaving the arena, leaving the stadium, leaving NRG, or leaving, I'm sorry, they were in Indianapolis, leaving, Lucas Oil Field. They're happy leaving that. Then you get this story the next day, and we'll get into that in a second, that the Titans handle business and go out on a losing season, but win big over Jacksonville. They win the AFC South. It is a great turnaround for this Texans team that you were able to see this. But that Texans-Colt game, it was close. We all know that the fourth down play, you can question what Steichen had drawn up, that, sometimes it felt like a Sark play. It felt like that. We got to confuse them or throw them, we got to try this thing, and they'll never see it coming. But there's a reason they didn't see it coming, because you were throwing to a guy who hadn't targeted all game and hadn't run all day. He hadn't got a touch all day long, and he's your guy on the most important play of the game. But there was some negatives of this game, too. There were some things that you're going to have to worry about for the Texans going forward. The run game both ways for the Texans is going to need some work. That it was very exposed against the Colts. And, the Browns are watching that, and so you're going to have to worry about that. Jonathan Taylor gets 188 yards to 6.1 yards per carry. Zach Moss gets 5 yards per carry in that game. And for David Singletary, he's under 3 yards per carry, 63 yards. Dameon Pierce didn't even carry the ball in the game. So not great numbers running game-wise either way, which is, if you know me talking about the Cowboys, and I'll get to the Cowboys in just a minute, you got to have that running game, especially once you get in the playoffs, to be able to control the time a little bit more and not just play gunslinger. But the Texans may have to be doing that against a Browns team that's very good with a very good pass rush. And they're going to need a big game from Nico Collins. Nico dominating this game. Of course, that 75-yard touchdown on the first play. C.J. Stroud said he just gave him a chance, and he went up there and got it. But great to see the Texans handle their business, get the AFC South Championship, host a game against the Browns coming up on Saturday afternoon. And then on Sunday, we saw the Cowboys handle their business 38-10 over the Commanders. It was a slow start. There was a little worry that maybe the Cowboys had looked past this game, and maybe the Cowboys weren't taking the Commanders as serious as they needed to, and they knew the Commanders wanted to lose to get that better pick, so that they really had to, they knew the Commanders didn't want to win, and the players want to win. But they knew the team didn't want to win, and that you're supposed to be tanking for the pick, and the ownership would prefer them to lose the game. And I don't think they came in with the right attitude. The good news was they were able to turn it on. We saw that Deron Bland gets another big interception, puts a cap on a great season for him with Trayvon Diggs out. He put on a great season. Stephon Gilmore had a good game until he gets hurt in the game. But the great news after the game, that none of that seemed to be massive structural damage, and he's planning to play in Wild Card Weekend. So you're good to see there for the secondary that those guys are stepping up and playing good in a place where sometimes that is an issue for Cowboys, an issue for a lot of teams, is that secondary. And then to see the most promising thing, and I get this is a Commanders team that trade away their two ends, and there's a Commanders team that is basically rebuilding that D-line, and it's not very good, and they're going to have to do a lot of work on defense. But this was the best game from Rico Dowdle. This was the best game from Tony Pollard of yards per carry and just getting yards when they need it. Both average over 4 yards per carry, and that's what you need to see. as this team continues to get into the playoffs, that you need to be able to see the production in this run game for the Cowboys to be able to make a good run in the playoffs. I mean, we saw Jerry Jones come out today, and when they were asked about Mike McCarthy, and you expect that he's won 12 games in the regular season 3 straight years, and we knew going into the season it's all about the playoffs, but 12 games that you maybe have a little bit more of job security than Mike McCarthy has, which is basically, we can all say, if Mike McCarthy loses game 1, which they shouldn't, if they do, then I don't know if he has a job. I think that's a point where you have to say, well, that's clearly there's something wrong. But we've seen what his progress is. And I'm not a big Mike McCarthy fan, but you have to give credit where credit is due. And with the progress we've seen with Dak Prescott this year, the progress we've seen in this Dallas Cowboys offense, CeeDee Lamb has taken it to another level. Now it shouldn't have taken you 6 weeks to figure out to just throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb. I know we were pounding that early in the season, just throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, and he's been able to show up and do what he needs to do. But the Cowboys get their win. Mike McCarthy shows that he can be a play caller. That I think his play calling has progressed throughout the season. I like the fact that the Cowboys team, when they didn't come in with the right attitude and didn't come in the way they need to be, were able to respond. Now you'd like that they would have shown up and just shut the Commanders out and it never would have been close and they would have just dominated. That would have been better, but in the grand scheme of things, to be able to have the leadership on the sideline and the wherewithal in the team to realize you're the better team, you need to go out there and handle your business and then go handle your business. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that because we saw that in Jacksonville. We saw that in Jacksonville. That this is a Jacksonville team that continued to stick Trevor Lawrence out on the field and continued to just put everything on his shoulders, not try and run the ball, not try and build any sort of other offense. Put everything, and I know you got good wide receivers, and when Christian Kirk went down, it hurt their offense because they really were built on having 3 good wide receivers with Zay Jones and Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, and that was kind of the entire basis for this Jaguars team. But you can't take a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who is not the guy, and maybe still some point in the future it clicks over and he becomes a guy. And yes, he needs to have his legs to be super effective as a quarterback, because once you take out his scrambling ability and he is just a pocket passer, he's not an elite pocket passer. And they continue to put him out there hurt and continue to not let him heal. And it ended up costing him because they just got diminished returns. He has an okay game, 280, 2 touchdowns, but he has 2 interceptions. And Tennessee and Mike Vrabel is able to put up a defensive plan to say, look, they're not going to run. They're going to put everything in Trevor Lawrence's hand, and he can't run. So just go out there and play good defense. Make him have to think twice. And what did the game end with? Him throwing 2 passes too high because the coverage was pretty good. And, I mean, if he were throwing better passes, they could have picked up a first down, kept it going. It doesn't matter. They end up losing. They dropped from a pretty much sure thing 4 or 5 weeks ago to win the AFC South to not making the playoffs. I still like Doug Peterson as a coach, but I think that the short-sightedness of this Jaguars coaching staff to continue to put Trevor Lawrence, and I know he wants to play, but he's not good enough of a quarterback to demand that he goes in the game every time. Put him on the bench. Tell him he's got to get better and healthy so he can run, because that's when he's going to be effective. You can't hamstring yourself for the last 5 weeks of the season when you could have rested him 6-7 weeks ago when he started to get beat up. And you could have said, okay, well, those first injuries, let's take him out instead of compounding injuries. And you'd probably still be there. As a Texans fan, I'm fine with it. Good job, Jaguars, throwing away the end of the season. Another team throwing away the end of the season. Also, I want to mention there, Derrick Henry. Man, if you want to put when they say put it on film for your resume, you're updating your resume, and sometimes you're updating your resume, and you realize, oh, man, I need to judge this up, make it look a little bit better. That's what Derrick Henry did. Said, no one thinks I still got it. Runs for 150 yards and a touchdown in that game. One of the big reasons the Titans win is because Derrick Henry can't be stopped. It was fun to watch a guy just kind of stick it to everyone who said he couldn't. He still didn't have anything in the tank. He said, no, I got some more in the tank. The team's not where it needs to be, but I got some more in the tank. But we're talking about teams who are fallen off an edge at the end of the season. We have to mention the Eagles. We have to mention how bad the Eagles have looked these last few weeks. We have to mention that this team, offensively and especially defensively, has just fallen off a cliff. And now they are under some of the same problems that you have in Jacksonville, that you keep putting Jalen Hurts out there. And he's clearly not 100% Jalen Hurts. And now part of that is that he is, that he wants to go out there and play, and you don't think you have the other option at quarterback, and you didn't want to put Marcus Mariota in there, which you finally had to in this game. And part of it, people are saying that he just isn't the guy. But I think this is another place of a quarterback that's a good quarterback with 100% of their faculties, 100% of their weapons available. They are a good quarterback. Not elite, but a good quarterback. And once you start to take that away and you take off 10% and 20% and 30% of their abilities to play the game of football, it becomes cost prohibitive. And you go, well, it's better to let them rest up. So when the playoffs, when we get down to the end of the season and we're playing in week 17, week 18, and these games matter. And these games we got to win. And we have an easy schedule. We'll lose a couple. I get it. We'll lose a couple and it'll come back because they're going to get healthier. And maybe it won't work and maybe they won't get healthier. But if you're playing good at the end of the season and you're still in the seed you are right now, you feel a lot better than you're playing like crap at the end of the season because nothing seems to be going right. And if this is not the end of Matt Patricia having any sort of substantial position in football or in the NFL, I mean, I don't know what you can find about a guy whose all of his success, his only success as as a coach in the NFL comes with Bill Belichick. It comes when he was a defensive coordinator and a defensive position coach on a team that notoriously Bill Belichick runs everything on. That notoriously Bill Belichick shares none of his secrets on. That notoriously Bill Belichick does not care about the coaches underneath him. He just goes out there and coaches. And I think Bill Belichick loved the fact that Patricia took all the credit. He said, oh, no, yeah, you're doing it, buddy. You're doing a great job. And so then he walks into Detroit and sucks as a head coach in Detroit. And he goes and, he sucks when he goes back to New England trying to do offense where Bill Belichick wasn't taking over. And he sucked everywhere else he's been. And now he goes to Philadelphia, and give credit to Shane Steichen and Gannon that those guys that go and took head coaching jobs, they did matter. Clearly, both those guys were important pieces. But you bring him in as an analyst and like an assistant just to help out. And what does he do? He doesn't bring the team together. He doesn't galvanize this Eagles team. And judging by the fact that he took over play calling duties, I would imagine there might have been some gossip and some trash talk about his coaches that was happening behind the scenes. Because that's normally how these things happen. If someone walks around and goes, well, if I was doing it, I'd be doing that. Well, if I was. When I was at the Patriots, we did it this way. No, when we were successful, we did it this way. And I would do this. And Sirianni, who just wants to fix the defense and stop the bleeding, cuts the head off of him to stop the bleeding. I don't know what happened, but he puts Matt Patricia in, and they become the worst defensive team. They're just awful now. The Giants, who have nothing to play for, put up 27 against them. Made it look easy against them. Why do you let Matt Patricia be that guy? Why do you let somebody come in and take over this team and take over this defense that clearly the players don't want to play for? That no one on this defense seemed to be putting out the extra effort. And now you're in the playoffs, and man, Sirianni, you better have some real good some speeches, and you better go in there and look. If I was me, I would not have Matt Patricia. I would make another change. He says he's not making another change. I would make another change personally, because I have no faith in Matt Patricia at this point, because I've never seen him do anything without Bill Belichick doing it for him. It's like saying, man, this Stephen King's son's a great writer because of all his papers turned in. Well, maybe it's Stephen King. Maybe it's the other person. He hasn't done anything. I'm not saying, I don't know Matt Patricia personally. I don't want to take any shots of him being a bad person. I just don't think that, I think that he has been bad on every team he's been in without Bill Belichick. That is a fact. So if we want to put that every team has been worse with Matt Patricia than with him, I don't know why you'd put him on your team, because clearly something's there. And as a Texans fan who watched the Patriots South destroy my team's culture and destroy everything about the team, I think there's some bad things happening in that New England locker room about deceit and mistrust that maybe these players aren't buying in. That's all I'm saying. I get rid of them. But I don't think the Eagles have much of a shot in the playoffs as of right now because of this. We also saw the Bills and the Dolphins play the late night game. Josh Allen does what Josh Allen does. He makes everybody in the world tweet out that he's cost his team a game and he's cost his team even more. And, oh, man, look at all the problems that Josh Allen has. And, man, this guy, he can't get it done. And then he wins the game. And, yeah, Tua had 2 interceptions. Josh Allen turned the ball over 2 touchdowns and a fumble. 2 interceptions and a fumble. But he has 359 yards at the end of the day, 67 yards rushing. He just does it all. And he does it all, including turnovers. And eventually that comes back and bites you. But against a Miami team that's a little beat up, a Miami team that's a little hurt right now and defensively, he's able to do enough. And Tua wasn't. And you just watch Josh Allen. You understand why people talk about him so much and why people want to see him so much. Is that guy is entertaining, whether he's throwing the ball away and giving it to the other team, fumbling, or playing good offense. He's entertaining, to say the least. Excited to see him in the playoffs. He's one of those teams you kind of want to play the Bills because you feel like if you just don't turn the ball over, if you just play solid football, you can beat them. But then nobody's able to really do that, and the people were doing it earlier, and then Josh Allen takes it to that next level. You just like to see it. It's crazy to watch what he does. It's crazy, but it's going to make for a good playoffs. We've also seen, we'll get to the coaches and the fired in a little bit. We'll get to some predictions in a little bit. One more thing to notice, though, just because it is a massive topic of conversation today, was the Saints and the end of the game. Jameis Winston doing Jameis Winston things. His post-game interviews were hilarious. And look, I don't agree with it. I think Jameis Winston should have, if he wanted to do it, he should have audibled out of the play, but he knows that Dennis Allen would have called a timeout. And I know they say it's a full team decision. I don't know if it was a full team decision. I'm going to say I could believe that the way Jameis Winston, especially how he's talking after the game, is one of those guys who I've been guilty of this. I've been guilty of, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? And I know where I want to go, and we're going where I want to go. And guess what? I can talk well enough that I picked the place and we're going, but I'll make you think that we picked the place, and I'll say it, and everybody's going to go, and then they'll talk later and go, hey, man, did any of us want to go there but Patrick? No one did. But Patrick made it a team decision. I think Jameis Winston may have made this a team decision by himself. Hey, man, us guys who aren't getting the playing time, we really need some love. Us guys who aren't getting, hey, us teammates need to stick together. Look, I'm happy for Jamal that he gets in there. We all like Jamal. He seems like a fun guy from Hard Knocks last year. He seems like a good enough guy. It's crazy that they couldn't get him a touchdown another way. It's crazy the team couldn't go to Dennis Allen throughout the game and say, hey, man, we're winning. We're doing okay. Why don't we get him a touchdown? It seems like that would have been the easier path. If you really, really want to get him a touchdown, it seems like you might be able to go to the head coach and say, the team has decided. We had a team meeting, and we decided we really want him to get in the end zone today. So if we're up a bunch, call the play. And it'll make all your players like you. But instead, we're going to go behind your back and do it. Makes it feel like Jameis Winston maybe went out on his own and went a little rogue. And he's going to claim the team because he knows no one's going to fight him on it. And it maybe seems like Dennis Allen does not necessarily have control of the team. Now, I'm not saying you need to get rid of Dennis Allen. I mean, I probably would have, just because I don't know if he's the guy to lead you anywhere. I like the idea better that you're not going to get the coach you want next year because of Derek Carr's contract still being there. There's still some progress, but it's just a hard decision to make between Derek Carr and keeping him another year that maybe I don't do that. But, man, look, it's a Bush League move to line up in the victory formation and then run the ball. We all know that. Whether it became as big of a deal as it should have, I don't know if I would have made it a bigger deal. If I was the owners of the Saints, I would have made it a big deal that how this get done. And if I'm Dennis Allen, I'd make it a huge deal. Why would you not tell me? We could have got him a touchdown. We were winning big. We could have done something to get him the ball. We could have tried to get the ball. And if you want to make this team decision, why doesn't someone take a knee at the 1 yard line and we try and run him in that way? Why don't we do that? Don't give me the – because it's only a team decision when you run up score. And I get you don't care about the Falcons, so why not do it? But it just doesn't seem – it doesn't stack up completely in the narrative that, oh, man, we're just a good team. Tell your coach then. Or tell the media that your coach – you don't have respect for your coach, because it can't be both. You can't have respect for Dennis Allen and not tell him that he needs to get a touchdown. You can't have both. Those are mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. You have to have both of them, right? You have to either be able to talk to your coach, say, we really, really want our guy to get a touchdown. Or you have to go behind his back and do it because you don't think that he's going to do anything for you. You think you're still on the roster and do all that. I think there's somewhere in there, I'm all for player empowerment in a lot of ways, but this doesn't, it feels wrong. I think Arthur Smith reacted wrong too, by the way. I think that you just walk out there at the end and go, yeah, we got beat. I'm probably getting fired. I'm not going to go make a joke of myself at the end. I wouldn't do that either because I'm not that mad about it. I'm more mad if I was a Saints fan. Man, that's what's happening in our locker room. It would make me more mad for that. Let's get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll. Take a quick break, and we'll come back. Get to some of your texts. We'll get to some more talk. We got more NFL talk, too. There's a lot happening in the NFL. We got some playoff predictions, coaches being fired. Who knows who could get fired during the show today? Let's get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll today.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
All right. Big Fat Poll of the day today. Text line is open. 512-447-3776. We're going to talk some Texas football here in the 5 o'clock hour. So I want to ask you, where do you think Texas should be ranked to start next season? We're starting to see some way too early polls. I want to throw my hat in there in way too early polls. Some of them had Texas around 5 or 6. Some people have them up at 2. We know there's still a lot of moving parts. We'll get into that. I'll play some sound from Ian Rod B that they're talking about it. We'll talk about it ourselves in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll talk with you on the text line with it all show long. Where do you think Texas should be ranked to start next season as of right now? And you can assume that Quinn Ewers is coming back, or you can assume he's leaving. I'd like you to put, if you say, I don't think he's coming back and all that, but put all that in there. 512-447-3776. If you got any playoff predictions for the NFL and any score predictions or playoff predictions for tonight's game, throw those in as well, all in the text line. Anything else you want to talk about, we're here for you on the Sports Complex. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, play some sound from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rod B, talking about Texas, give you a little bit more informed details about those decisions and where you think they should be ranked. We come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on Sports Complex here on the Horn on a Monday afternoon. I still got some more NFL to get to. We'll see if we can get to it by the end of the show. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. As we keep going, we're going to play some sound, talking some Texas football. And Ian Rob B this morning talking Texas football and what they saw and what the news and notes over the weekend were, with a lot of news. I know we had news breaking at the end of the show on Friday, so a lot of that, picking that up, kind of thoughts about that. Always good to get their opinion on that, so we'll play you some of that. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. We're asking a poll of the day. Where do you think Texas should be ranked to start next season? And also throw in there your predictions for tonight and any playoff predictions for the NFL that you may have had as well. It is the musical theme of the week, David Bowie. It's David Bowie's birthday today, or would be his birthday today. So we're going to play some David Bowie all week. I know it's also Elvis's birthday today, and it's Jimmy Page's birthday tomorrow. I had to make a choice. I went with David Bowie. I think it goes. I mean, I'm probably listening to more Led Zeppelin than Bowie, to be quite honest. But I thought that the Zeppelin intros could be good, but some of them are kind of slower starting, and we go through. So I went with Bowie. See what we get. We'll see how weird we get into Bowie throughout this week. But we'll play the Bowie songs all week long, celebrating his birthday. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Chan, I will say we will be talking Texas basketball in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll be talking about that game that was not great. So watching that and the Texans game and going back and forth, and then I'd go back and watch some of the Texans game again, which is never fun. Never fun to have to rewatch a loss and go back and go, what really went wrong? It's never fun. But we'll get into all that. But why don't we play some sound from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B, talking about some Texas news and notes and everything you should be able to get out of Texas football to kind of get you caught up to date. We'll talk more Texas football here on the show in the 5 o'clock hour, and we'll keep it going. But here's a replay from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B this morning.
All right, let's talk about the many headlines that the Longhorns had over the weekend, and there were a ton of them. First of all, just trying to keep up with the transfer portal. Over the weekend, you had multiple players announced they were going into the transfer portal. Jerrin Thompson and Keaton Crawford. So that adds now to the already 4 defensive backs you had in the transfer portal. Now I believe you have 6 total, if I'm not mistaken,
Jalen
right?
Catalon, B.J. Allen, Larry Turner Gooden, Keaton Crawford, Jerrin Thompson. Yeah, so that's 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 of them total. Yeah, Keaton, Xavier, Jalen, Larry Turner Gooden, B.J. Allen, and so you got 6 of them total. 5 safeties, I believe, that group, because I believe Xavier Price was the only one that was just considered a DB. So 5 safeties, and with guys, Ryan Watts now leaving at corner. He's declaring for the NFL draft. So now in total, you're talking about what? 6, 8 DBs potentially if Jahdae Barron leaves. Now this is why the question is big about Jahdae Barron. Now the question looms even bigger. So you got
with
6,
Ryan Watts saying I'm going to the pros.
So you got 6 DBs in the transfer portal, 5 of those safeties. Ryan Watts, that makes 7 DBs total of all your DBs, your scholarship DBs that are leaving. And if Jahdae Barron leaves, that's 8. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of attrition in your defensive backfield, no matter which way you're looking at it. 7 is a lot anyway. And those 7, you'd have how many starters? 2, Ryan Watts a starter. Jerrin Thompson was a starter. Keaton Crawford was a contributor, semi-starter for you. So maybe 2.5 starters out of that group. They wanted Jalen Catalon to be a starter, but you could say he did have 4 starts. But I don't know if you can call him a starter because he didn't start enough games to be that guy. So you did lose, I say 4 of those 7 that you're losing for sure. Maybe 8 if Jahdae Barron declares are actually contributors and are starters. So that's why in the transfer portal, you saw them go get Makuba. That's really important. And in this recruiting class, as you brought up several times, they are looking – this is they're overhauling the defensive backfield. As I talked about, the last area of roster construction that they really haven't addressed is the defensive backfield. That's what this recruiting class is about, with 5 defensive backs. Now these guys got to contribute right away. It used to be they had time, the luxury of being able to sit those guys and have them really, kind of develop and acclimate and adapt to, college life, all that. I don't know if you'll have time for all of those DBs to do that. 1 or 2 of those guys are going to have to help you immediately, right now.
Yeah, and with the official declarations to the draft, you mentioned Jahdae Barron. This is one to watch because, look, your top 5 guys into the draft, these are going to be top 100 draft picks. Jonathan Brooks at running back, Xavier Worthy, And Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, J.T. Sanders. J.T. Sanders announced on Friday he's going to the pros. Jahdae Barron and A.D. Mitchell have not yet announced. They've got till the 15th, Rod, so they still have a full week, a lot of time. Jordan Whittington has said his goodbye. Jalen Ford is off to the NFL. We believe. Now, he has not declared either, but we assume he's going, right? He's pretty much said goodbye.
No, Jalen Ford has.
Jalen Ford has. Okay,
Yes,
he did.
He is.
He is. Jordan Whittington has. Christian Jones
Yes.
and Ryan Watts, who
Yes.
declared yesterday. So that's 9. The 2 that have not, well, the 3, if you put Quinn Ewers in there, somebody put out a nice, funny tweet that apparently Quinn Ewers has been hunting all week. He got a picture of him with a big old deer, big old antlers.
I'm sure they got wireless out there. Got a hotspot out there.
That's what I don't, because with Jahdae Barron and
This is a tweet.
somebody tweeted, he put out some pictures of some
Bucks.
protein he took
Yeah,
down.
that's what I'm saying. I'll
Some
take
fresh
you.
protein.
Where's the video to say you're coming back? That's all.
That's all. Or we just assume he's already.
Yeah, maybe you're right. He's like, why would y'all assume I'm leaving?
But A.D. Mitchell is one that has not yet announced, nor has Jahdae Barron. And your point of, boy, how important he could be. And you said this earlier, but I'll let you pick up on it, that he, could he want to show the NFL more versatility, come back for another year and play safety with Andrew Makuba in the back end, with Derek Williams, with Michael Taft, and play a little more to show the versatility, because we know what type of player Jahdae Barron is. I mean, but at the same time, just because they haven't announced yet doesn't mean they're not going to announce.
Yeah. So the Barron news, I mean, that obviously looms large for Texas, because out of all the losses that you've had via guys declaring for the NFL draft, or guys via the transfer portal leaving your program, defensive backfield has been affected the most. And you are getting a lot of guys in the recruiting class, and you're getting Makuba in the transfer portal, but still that would be an area of concern. If Jahdae Barron comes back, that'd be a huge relief for Texas. You just brought up wide receiver. That's also big for Texas, because you're losing Jay Witt, X-Man, Casey Kane, Isaiah Nayor. Remember, Isaiah Nayor going to Nebraska, I believe it is. Casey Kane going to UNLV. So, yeah, that's why the wide receiver position, because you're losing 5 wide receivers now. If A.D. Mitchell declares, which I think he will, there's no way A.D. Mitchell's coming back if he's considered a first-round pick. I don't know why he's taking so long to make his announcement. So maybe he is pondering. But man, if you're gonna be a first round pick, if people are projecting you to be a first round pick, which they are for him, he could slide into the second, because it's a deep wide receiver draft. Wide receiver is always really deep. It's the deepest position in football, in my opinion. That pushes him down. But there's gonna be a run on wide receivers in the first round. It's guaranteed. That's gonna be a run. Could be even in the top 10. Can start early. So I think AD is gonna end up being drafted at the bottom of the first, depending on how he runs too. Now, if he's running slow. Now, if he's over there on the 40 acres, and when they time them, he's running high 4.5s, then maybe you need to stay. Maybe you need to stay, because
That'll drop you a round.
It's going to drop you. That's going to drop you. It's going to drop you to low rounds. They don't like slow wide receivers. They just do not like wide receivers with slow foot speed. Now, I don't know if he has some, but do we know if he has? Remember, do we know that he's a burner? I don't. Right now, that's the big question mark on him. Can he run?
We know his route running.
We know his route running is
separation.
Great. Body control is fantastic. Hands are great. Can he show that he can create separation with pure speed? He's a guy that's going to make an NFL roster. There's no doubt. He will be drafted. There's no doubt. But drafted in the first round, you drafted on potential. You drafted on measurables. Will he run a fast 40? If he runs in the high 4.4s, low 4.5s, he's good. He's golden. If he doesn't, there's going to be problems. They're going to drop him. So I wonder if he stays, I wonder if he's worried about his 40. And he's worried about, man, maybe I need to come back and work on my speed.
Right now, as we said earlier, by CBS Sports, he's listed as the 6th or 7th receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Keon Coleman, Emeka Egbuka, Rome Adunze, and then Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah.
But if you
right
are running high 4.5 to 4.6, that can slide quickly, because the next group are Xavier Worthy and Moose Muhammad and some other guys. So, because it's beauty in a lot of cases outside of, Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors, maybe Keon Coleman, it's kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's who fits your scheme, who fits your offense, who fits what you want to do and what you're looking for. So we'll see where that goes. But that has not announced yet. That's the one we'll be watching. Rod, any thoughts on these 2 portal prospects that are on campus. And
Oh yeah,
according
Jamari Caldwell, the Houston defensive lineman. He's a good player. I mean, Texas saw him. He had 2 sacks versus Texas, so he performed really well.
6'1", 325, and of course with the portal jumping with Trill Carter, jumping into the portal, defensive line and
Also,
safety,
Chris Ross.
You
had two defensive linemen, and you're losing Sweat Murphy.
got
Collins
Alfred Collins coming back, but that's one to watch.
That's 4 interior defensive linemen you're losing. So, yeah, that's something else you're going to prioritize in the transfer portal, especially a guy that can play right away, because you are going to have unproven commodities behind Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. Think about it. We all believe Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins have a chance, at least Alfred Collins has a chance to play at the next level, right? He's got a Sunday skill set. Maybe for Vernon Broughton too, right? He's trending that way. The last 2 years, you've had the luxury of having multiple, 4 to 5 NFL defensive tackles, draftable NFL defensive tackles in rotation. 2 years ago, you had Murphy, Sweat, Ojimo, and Coburn. Last year, you had Murphy, Sweat, Alfred Collins, all right, and Vernon Broughton. This year, you're going to have Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, and who are your NFL guys behind them? That's the question, and that's why they want to have a more proven commodity. That's why Jamari Caldwell acquisition, if you can get him, is huge for Texas.
Yeah,
they need him.
He's a very active interior player at 325 pounds at Houston. The other guy on campus, and according to Bobby Burton over at On Texas Football, our great friend and partner, he says that they're going to stay through today. Like, you come in on Sunday, you stay the night, come and stay in the Monday morning.
Wish we had better weather.
It was beautiful yesterday, by the way. But the other one is the Liberty wide receiver, C.J. Daniels, and this was Liberty won a lot of football games. He was their leading receiver, Rod. 6'2", 200, 55 catches, almost 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns last year. He was their leading receiver for the Flames.
Yeah, he had 8 receptions versus Oregon, so even in that game, he showed out pretty big. I think this is a guy that they're looking to get 21 yards per reception. I mean, this guy, he takes the top off of defense.
And we said
he's a deep threat.
The A.D. Mitchell decision notwithstanding, with Matt right now, as far as players who are officially going to be here, Matthew Golden's your most experienced receiver. Mm-hmm. You're going to, just like we're talking about, I mean, this is the development of your program. You're going to lose really good players if you're going to develop like they are. And, a receiver where, just like we talk about defensive tackle and safety, you're having to, develop some guys. Same at receiver, but at the same time, through the portal, if you can add a veteran player, right? They brought in Matthew Golden. This is a kid who at Liberty has produced, even against really good competition like Oregon, like you said. 21, just a veteran college football receiver to go with DeJounte Cooks, DeAndre Moore's, Ryan Niblett, those type of players who are going to be good players. You just don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, if you just look at basic roster construction, they're losing, worst case scenario, 8 defensive backs just via transfer portal or the NFL declaration or whatever, or just eligibility exhausted. 8 defensive backs at the worst, so they're going in the transfer portal, getting the DB. Defensive line, they're going to lose 4 defensive linemen this year. So out of that group, so they're getting a defensive lineman. Jamari Caldwell is the one they're targeting. Wide receiver, they're going to lose 5 if A.D. Mitchell jumps in, worst case scenario, of your wide receivers group. That's why Matthew Golden and this young man, C.J. Daniels. So, where they're losing a lot of key guys, where they're losing depth and they're losing just bodies, they're trying to get it, and where you supplement that is real time is via the transfer portal. Long term, your strategy is obviously more organic recruiting. They're also going to lose Juan Davis, jumped in the transfer portal at the tight end position, and losing J.T. Sanders. That's a little concerning.
He jumped back out though. Did you see that?
Did he jump back out?
Yeah.
No,
Juan Davis. That was weird. He jumped in the portal and then came out.
That was strange.
I don't know. Maybe tight ends coach Jeff Banks called him and said, "Hey, you have a chance to be a starter for us next year."
Yeah.
And with Gunnar Helm, I mean, you have a chance. And so Juan Davis was in and then out.
That's good news.
And he and Gunnar Helm will be your top 2 tight ends next year, along with anything else that comes in. But yeah, I mean this was why it was important this year, Rod, without a doubt, to capitalize on what was there, and they did. Right? They won the Big 12 championship. They played in the Final Four. They played that game to the final play. And, so they took a big step forward as a program in year 3. But, yes, you're going to have attrition now. I mean, you're developing players. This year's team was very talented with holdovers, guys who were here when you got here, and then the guys you developed and then you recruited. And so that's where there's a big number here of players moving on to the NFL. And then the ones in the portal, Rod, a lot of them, as you said, those exit interviews, maybe we're told, hey, we're overhauling our secondary here, guys. And maybe you don't fit where we're overhauling and where we're going. So yeah, I mean that's you're losing a lot of players and names that people know. The hope is that you're at a point of your program that you're through the portal and through your high school recruiting, you're filling that with even potentially higher ceiling players.
Yeah, I think they're upgrading the roster overall, but still, you don't want to be caught without enough depth, enough talented
Sure.
depth at certain positions, and that would be the concern. I mean, I'm not worried about Texas having talent; they have talent there, but a talented depth, losing potentially 8 DBs. I mean, that's a lot.
That
in
is
one,
a lot.
in one acquisition cycle.
Sure,
That's a
100%.
lot. So you want to make sure you're replacing that, and not just with freshmen coming in. You want some veteran guys who got some experience.
No question.
Yeah.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B. You can listen to that every weekday morning, 6 to 11, right here on The Horn. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. We're asking you where you think Texas will be ranked next season. There's some early polls coming out. We're asking you about that. We're also asking you if you got any score predictions for tonight. Maybe playoff predictions. Send any of that in. Anything else you want to talk about there on the text line. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. It's open, and we're coming back and talking to the text line. We'll be answering your text when we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn, playing Bowie all week because it's his birthday today, or would have been his birthday, whatever you want to call it. We're playing Bowie all week here on the Sports Complex. Text line's open. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. Whatever you guys want to talk about today, we're asking you, what do you think Texas will be ranked in the new poll in the next year? The way too early polls are starting to come out and people are starting to talk about next season already. We know there's still the transfer portals open and people are still deciding to go to the draft or not. And, we're still working on all of that, but there's some early polls. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I know if you got any predictions for tonight or the NFL playoffs, send those in as well. Going to the text line now. Nate says, ha ha ha, stupid Eagles. Yes. They've seemed to have shot themselves in the foot this year, but playoffs are at the start of a new season. Maybe they can get something done there. And I'd put the Horns around number 8. I think number 8. Some people are putting them higher than that. It depends on who you're going to put ahead of them. I think, Oregon's one of those teams that probably will get put pretty high. Ohio State's always up there. Georgia's always up there. Alabama's always up there. Michigan, depending on how much of an exodus there is, especially if Harbaugh leaves too, but we'll get into that more later. There's not a ton of teams that are necessarily going to be automatically ahead of Texas. So, but 8, not a bad number. Dexter asks, which team winning tonight in the college ball playoff will help or hurt Texas in the final poll? Well, clearly if Washington destroys Michigan, it helps Texas. And if Michigan destroys Washington, then it hurts Texas. But at the end of the day, first of all, I don't see that happening. We'll get into that more here in the 5 o'clock hour. I don't see that either. I don't think there's going to be a blowout. But yeah, I don't know if it'll affect too much. But clearly, Washington winning would be better for Texas in the final polls because then you lost to the national champion. Then you lost to the team, and then Alabama may look better, and then you get back in that poll. Was Alabama better at the end of the season than Texas was? And you can get back into that fight, and then wherever they're going to put Florida State for giving them credit for the beginning of the season, even though they got destroyed 63-3 at the end of the season by Georgia. And where do you put Georgia in that poll now that they lost to Alabama but seemed to be pretty dominant the rest of the season? Where do you put them? But yeah, and I mean, the end of the season poll isn't necessarily the biggest factor. I think, once you would get into that college ball playoff, I'm not as concerned about that final poll because it was like, well, we had the shot and we were a couple passes away from it. It's still disappointing. I know everybody, it's hard to explain to people that are, I have friends that are, Michigan fans, and you talk to Washington fans and they're super excited. They're like, you excited for the game? I'm like, I'm going to watch the game, but excited, maybe not super excited because I really wish my team was in it. And we were so close. I wish my team was in it. So not super excited, but who knows? But if you want to go with that, that's what I would say. Right Guy from New Mexico says, if Quinn were to stay, then I feel like we're a top 8 team. If he leaves, then I think we're placed somewhere within the top 15. You got to remember there's Arch Manning hype too. I really, and we'll talk about this a lot more here in the 5 o'clock hour. It's secondary. The secondary is the question at this point. And how do you rebuild that defense? That's a bigger question. I think offensively, people are still going to believe in Sark's offense, even if it's Archie. Even with all the targets leaving, you still have some good running backs on that team. I don't know if the offense is necessarily the problem, but there's a lot. You just heard it on that clip from Hook 'em Up with Ian Robbie that there's a lot of that secondary leaving. And Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy are leaving. And Jalen Ford is gone. That is a lot of people to replace on that defense. And how quickly can you turn that defense back around and get them playing to a level where you can compete in the SEC? I think that's the bigger question when we start to look at the rankings the next season. I don't know if they're going to dock them too much for Sark because they just believe in Sark. Chan says no one on the Dolphins defense wanted to tackle him. Josh Allen bulldozed his way to a first down. And yeah, no one wants to tackle Josh Allen because he is the only quarterback that will go initiate the contact like that. Jalen Hurts does a little bit, but Josh Allen is nuts out there. But that's what he is. He's kind of an anomaly, and people try to base other guys and Trey Lance and other people like, well, if Josh Allen's able to do that, then my God, not many people can have 3 turnovers and still lead your team down to win the game. Just not very common. Still got some more text coming too. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We'll finish up. We'll keep going with the text messages, 512-447-3776. And we will also get into some Texas talk, Texas football talk, all the news over the weekend. And we'll also get into Texas basketball, what they did. We'll have some NBA talk as well. And, of course, national championship talk. All coming up here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 109, AM 1260, the Horn app, hornfm.com. Hour two here on the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Lots more to get into. We're going to give you all the updates we can about Texas football. talk a little Texas basketball in here. If we got some time, we'll get back to some NFL talk as well. Lots more to get into there that we haven't got into. We'll also get into the NBA, some big games that happened over the weekend, and Draymond Green. His suspension is over, and the news about that, and talk within that. But we'll get to all of that coming up in more of your text messages, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. You guys drive the show. We just try to keep it on the rails. If you've missed the poll of the day, we're asking you where you think Texas will be ranked in the way too early preseason polls for next season. Where do you think Texas will be ranked, should be ranked, can be ranked? Where do you want them ranked? Those could be different things. You could think they're going to be ranked one place. You want them somewhere else, and you think they should be. You may think they should be a top 5 team. You think they're going to be a top 10 team, and you don't want them ranked in the top 25 because you don't want any pressure. I know people like that. Maybe that too. Send that in on the text line, 512-447-3776. And, of course, if you have predictions on tonight's game, send that in as well. Catching up with the news over the weekends, one of the biggest pieces of news was that Texas did replace their linebacker coach with Johnny Nansen out of Arizona, the defensive coordinator for Arizona. It is always surprising to see a Power 5 defensive coordinator kind of take a step back. Now, he is still a co-defensive coordinator with PK. That is in the title. You would have to believe that PK will still keep over the main majority of the job, but then maybe some of the, depending on game planning or whatever, will be Johnny Nansen will come over and take that. He does have a relationship with Sark long term, and that's one of the reasons you're able to get him in. I'm sure the money is good too, but Johnny Nansen from Arizona, that was part of that turnaround at Arizona to get a team that Arizona did not look good, that turns into a 10-3 team, wins their bowl game, looked really good down the stretch. And it's a Pac-12 team, so the defense wasn't necessarily their biggest strength, but they did have some good defensive games there as well. He's going to be the linebacker coach, co-defensive coordinator for Texas. And, so it's a good hire for Texas to get another really good football mind in to help out. And there is a thought of who was at Arizona this last year as an analyst, former Texas DB coach, former Texas co-defensive coordinator, and all former Texas assistant head coach and all the other roles. Dwayne Aquina, the man who helped oversee some very, very good defensive backs at Texas, and a really good time at Texas for defensive backs. Dwayne Aquina is there as an analyst. The question is, does he possibly, are they able to bring in, and Johnny Nansen has the relationship, and Texas has the relationship. We know my man Rob Babers, who's coached by Dwayne Aquina, is reaching out, and he'll probably be one of the first ones to tell you what will happen. But that is another person when we talk about the secondary, and we talk about what needs to happen in this Texas team and this Texas secondary to get better. And with all the players leaving the secondary, which we'll get into some of those a little bit more, and all the players that, you're bringing in and trying to teach, and the young guys you got from last year and the young guys you're bringing in, it would not hurt to bring in a really good defensive mind and a really good defensive back coach in Dwayne Aquina. So that's something to keep an eye out for. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are mentioning it, but we have not heard anything solid on that yet. But I know a lot of people are talking about Dwayne Aquina, and, just as somebody who watched those teams and somebody who's, I don't know anybody who talks bad about the guy and doesn't want him to come back. So I think it's more a question of finding him a role where he's happy. He was at Stanford for a very long time. And so the question is, where would he be happiest coming to Texas? Where does a role where he fits in with the guys that are here and not overstepping bounds or whatever, whatever that position is at Texas, seeing what happens there. I think people would love to see him come back and be a part of the fold here at Texas. As we start to get into some of the departures, when we talk about that secondary and people leaving, and look, there's two different types of people leaving right now. There's people going to the draft, which you can't fault them for, going on to follow on. A.D. Mitchell is one of the latest names to go into that poll, reported today that he will be entering the NFL draft. Not surprising, but he is one of the last names to be in there. We know Jonathan Brooks has said he's going in the NFL draft. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweater going in, of course. Jatavion Sanders is going in. Jay Wedd, Xavier Worthy, and A.D. Mitchell, all those great wide receivers are going in as well. And Ryan Watts is another name that has said he is going to enter his name into the NFL draft. So yet another person, Ryan Watts, one of those many people leaving. You also have guys like B.J. Allen and Xavion Bryce who already transferred out much earlier. Both of them ended up in North Texas, actually. You end up with Jalen Catalon transferring. He goes over to UNLV. Keaton Crawford and Jaron Thompson both transfer out. Those guys have not said where they're going yet. They just both went out on Friday. They entered the transfer portal, so they're both gone and moving on. That's a lot of people in the secondary. Larry Turner Goodwin also in that secondary at safety. You do get the best transfer in safety. The best transfer safety is coming to you in Mukaba, so that is a good sign you get him. You do have some big recruits coming in, but you'd like to probably get a little bit more experience in that secondary if you were at Texas. Other names, of course, on that transfer list. Casey Kane is going to UNLV as well. Trill Carter has announced that he is going to be going to Auburn, the defensive lineman who transferred out. We also saw Sawyer Gorham-Welch is transferring to Coastal Carolina, gets more playing time. Lake Murphy is going to Duke. Isaiah Neyor is going to Nebraska. Hopefully he's getting a good paycheck there and will get some playing time. I like Isaiah Neyor. It just did not quite work out. He was supposed to be the guy, and then the knee injury happened. He was just never quite able to fit back in. Chris Ross, the edge, has been transferring out as well. And then Charles Wright was another one on the Friday that we saw that he was transferring out, and hopefully he probably gets more playing time somewhere else. Some names that you should keep an eye for Texas fans. Names, C.J. Daniels, the wide receiver from Liberty, is coming in for an official visit or has already come in for an official visit. Oregon State wide receiver Silas Bolden is another person coming in for an official visit. So another couple of wide receivers. When you see the news that X-Man and A.D. Mitchell and Jay Witt and Jatavion Sanders are all heading out, that's where you worry about those guys. And then John Marie Caldwell, defensive tackle from Houston, is another name visiting Texas. Some names that people are visiting, but they are probably still pretty active in that transfer portal and will continue to be as the team goes on. Some big announcements of who is staying, though. We saw Juan Davis enters the transfer portal and immediately pulls himself back out. Big for him because the tight ends with Jatavion Sanders. Gunnar Helm had some good plays this year, but you're going to need some other help there at tight end. Juan Davis is coming back. That's good for him. Barron Sorrell, the edge rusher, has stated he is coming back for another year. And a big piece on that offensive line, Jake Majors, is coming back for another year for Texas in that center position. Also, just another news of note, is that Christo Conte and Sark have said they are meeting and we're most likely discussing contract extension. As you see, someone can get the team in 3 years to playing for a college football playoff. They're heading into the SEC, going in strong. He is most likely going to get a contract extension coming up soon. So they are spending money at Texas, but that is because Texas is not back, but back closer to where they want to be than they've been in quite some time. All right. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. Anything you also want to talk about? We're asking you where you think where Texas will end up in the early polls, or where you want them to end up, or where they should end up. However you want to put the phrasing of where you're going to rank Texas in the way too early polls. And I know we still don't know about Quinn Ewers. I've not seen that tweet come through. Corey Mose does an awesome job reporting Texas sports and do everything he does reporting. He's just a really good. You should follow him. He posted up there that one of the reasons we have not heard news from Quinn Ewers is because he was out hunting all weekend. So he's probably been thinking about other things, probably trying to clear his mind a little bit. It is a huge decision for him to come back for another year or to go to the NFL. People still believe that he is coming back for another year. But you never know. That decision could change. At those nights out there or early mornings up in the blind, wherever he's going and wherever he's hunting, maybe he changes his mind, or maybe he makes up his mind and has that decision made. Text line's open, though, 512-447-3776. Anything else you want to talk about, send that in on the text line. Any predictions for tonight for the NFL as well, send that in, and we will get to it. Texter says, I see Knight's Tale. I do not know what that means. We'll move on. Texter says, personal opinion about the secondary. I'm in favor of one. I think we should give it a try. I know. People are very down on the secondary, and yes, they did not do great. That's somewhat of the game plan. The bend but don't break was really what they were trying to do, and then the game plan against Washington. And we'll see tonight. We will see tonight. This pass rush is much better than Texas, much better. So they may be able to get to him in a bigger way than Texas was. I think that was part of the problem with the secondary all last year, and especially in the bowl game, in the Sugar Bowl, is you just could not get pressure on him at a high enough level to make some of those throws more errant, to put them in longer down and longer passing plays where he was having to fit things into windows over and over again. Because when he had to, he was doing it. There were plays where hands were up, and I know you don't have elite DBs that were able to play the ball and make big plays on the ball, but they were making plays on the receivers, and the receivers are just really good receivers, really good throwing by Michael Penix Jr. So I don't have as much animosity towards the secondary as others, but I agree they need to fix it. I agree it needs to be better, and the question is, does losing everybody and basically starting over, and we don't know about Jahdae Barron. We have not heard if he is coming back or if he's going to be a piece of this, if he's going to the NFL. I believe a lot of people are putting him around a 4th-round pick. If he does go to the NFL, he could transfer as well. We don't know. But he most likely would go to the NFL if he decides to move on as a 4th-round pick or somewhere around their 4th, 5th-round pick. But that'll be the question. Dave, you basically completely starting over where you have Derek Williams and Manny Muhammad that were part of the team this year. You're adding Mukaba in there. But how many guys can you get in? And then that transfer portal, go get a little bit more experience and see if they can mesh in with some of these guys. You recruited a lot of guys in the secondary. You went hard for it. But at the same point, that is going to be difficult to completely rebuild and put new guys in. It's another reason you probably want to, as many DB coaches even get on the staff to get a Dwayne Akina in there and help out this young team get better and better. Text line. Chan says, with all the players departed, number 13, a lot of teams are going to have players departed, though. Georgia has a lot of guys leaving. Alabama, everybody has players. There's an Alabama linebacker going in the portal right now that Texas is going to be taking a look at from Duncanville. So, I know if you're focused just on Texas, it's hard to not look at it and say, oh, man, that team is completely depleted. But again, I don't know if the pollsters are going to say the offense is going to take a massive hit next season. I think the bigger hit for the offense is you're going to the SEC, and the defenses are expected to be better. But I think more it's going to be, how much do they feel that defense is going to take a step and grow up. Texter says number 5 for next year, around there. Oh, Golden Years dance scene for the Night Tales movie. I see what you're saying. Golden Year. I got you. Playing David Bowie. I've not seen A Knight's Tale in a very, very long time, so I could not grab that, but I appreciate you listening and pulling that one out. I could not grasp that concept. Pass rush is 50% of your coverage unit. If you do not have all stars in the backfield and don't produce pressure, you're going to have a long day period. I agree. And that was a problem, and you're going up against a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line in Washington. What they were able to do to Alabama and make mincemeat of that Alabama offensive line, so we'll see what they're able to do against Washington. If Michigan doesn't get 2 or 3, 4 sacks, if they don't get 3 or 4, is that what we're saying is a number? Is that a number we can agree on, 3 or 4? If they don't get that in the game against Michael Penix, then we knew Texas really didn't stand much of a shot. They sacked Jalen Milroe 5 times in the first half. So I'm saying 3 or 4. If they're under that, if they're 2 sacks, 1 sack, then they're going to have a really long day. I don't think that'll be the case. I think they're going to get pressure. I think they're going to get home just because they're going to be much more aggressive than Texas was. Texas, because of the worries in the secondary, kind of played it conservative, which they did a lot, which was put everybody in the backfield and, make Michael Penix Jr. hit small windows. And he did over and over again, and it cost Texas. And maybe if you give PK that opportunity again, they say, well, crap, that didn't work. Let's go back and bring out all-out rushes and exotic blitzes and try and make the ball get out quicker, and maybe that'll mess it up and just trust our guys in man. But at the end of the day, you don't get to do that do-over, and so they're going to go through it. And we'll see tonight in that Washington-Michigan game if Michigan's able to get home. Look, we'll talk about it in just 1 second. I'm going to talk Texas basketball. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk Washington and Michigan and more of your text messages and some Houston Texans sound as well for me and Rob B. But I do want to get in this Texas Tech game, Texas versus Texas Tech basketball game before we take a break. I'm trying to avoid it because I don't like talking about Texas losing. I don't like the way this team looked in that game. I don't like a lot of things that happened in that game. It ends up Texas loses the game. Not even close, really. I mean, there was points in the second half where this game was a lot closer than it should have been, but it was 78-67. Texas Tech gets the win over Texas. Just look, you can't have your bigs play that bad offensively and get beat around in the post and not be able to score. It's a huge problem that, Caden Shedrick goes 1 for 7. Brock Cunningham 0 for 2. They're both three-pointers, by the way. Goes 0 for 2, both his three-pointers. Doesn't get any points inside. Dylan Dessou, 3 for 9. You're just not getting the points inside. And now, look, they scored points in the paint. They had 32 points in the paint. You're able to drive and get there. But your big men, where you need Shedrick and you need Dylan Dessou to score, you need those guys to be focal points. You need to play that inside out. They weren't able to get that going. So the offense never got fully going. They only get 14 free throws. It's never good when the other team makes more free throws than you shoot. That is a hard game to win. Texas Tech goes 15 for 21 from the line. You go 9 for 14. So they outscore you by 6 points there on the free throw line. You have to be able to get to the line, especially the big guys. We saw Shedrick shoot no free throws. Dylan Dessou went 2 for 3. Brock Cunningham doesn't get to the line. Your big guys need to be able to go in there and get to the line as well. And the perimeter defense just wasn't there. Tyrese Hunter came back. You were hoping that was going to help out your perimeter defense more. It wasn't. And I think that there's a Texas team that, if we look at the percentages too, Texas Tech shot 50% in the first half, 56% in the second half. Like you just can't let people shoot that well because you out-rebounded them. You did a lot of things correctly. You out-rebounded them 38-27. You scored more points in the paint. You had more second chance points. You had more fast break points. You had a lot of things going for you, and you just still were not really in this game as much as you needed to be. You did turn the ball over 14 times. You don't want to see that. But it was just a disappointing game for Texas to not be able to really get the inside post going, because I think if you look at this Texas offense especially, this offense was based kind of in Max Asmus is going to be able to help carry us until we get to Dylan Dessou, and then Shedrick stepped up early, but his production has gone down in recent weeks. So if you say you really need Dylan Dessou, if he's not able to get in there, he only has 9 points, then you need Max Asmus to step up. Tyrese Hunter does a good job, gets 20 points in the game, but you're expecting Max Asmus to be the guy, an elite scorer, and he just hasn't been an elite scorer at the Power 5 level yet. So there's a lot of pieces Texas is going to have to work on. Hopefully this is a wake-up call that they're going to have to be tougher. They're going to have to play tighter defense on the perimeter. They're going to have to play a better defense. They're going to have to play harder in this game, and you're going to hope that they were just not ready for Big 12 play, and Texas Tech got up for it better than they did. That's what you're going to hope. But at the end of the day, for Texas, it's a wake-up call. It's a big wake-up call to lose your first game in Big 12 play. It's a wake-up call that, the guys who are getting playing time need to step up their play. Kendall Weaver didn't even have a great game. Like, Kendall Weaver is one of those guys that in a game like this, you expect to step up more to play some even better defense. Just none of them seem to be into the game the way they need to be. And part of that may be, too, the students are out and, you didn't necessarily get the Moody Center the way you needed to be, and you don't get that home court advantage, and maybe that threw them off. I don't know. None of those are good enough excuses of why you should. Like, you should have been able to handle Texas Tech. You should have been able to handle a Texas Tech team that has a guy who was charged with a crime in a civil suit, or charged with a civil suit earlier that day or the day before, that maybe they'd be distracted and he shouldn't lead the team in scoring. You should be able to play a little bit better defense on him. That's all I'm saying. So it's disappointing. I think this is one that you kind of have to watch the film and move on for. They play again tomorrow against Cincinnati. You'd like to see them play a much better game against Cincinnati. If they don't play well against Cincinnati, that's when problems start to arise. I'm definitely not going to be on the Rodney Terry hate bandwagon at all. I think he's doing a good job so far, but, this is one of those things that happens early in seasons. It happens early in Big 12 play. Maybe the scheduling wasn't done correctly in a way where you really got yourself geared up and amped up for Big 12 play in the way it started. But, it's not the best start you wanted, but you can move forward as your Texas. You need to go play well against Cincinnati tomorrow. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some Michigan versus Washington. More of your text messages, 512-447-3776. And we'll keep the party rolling here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the sports complex here on the Horn, playing Bowie all week because it would have been his birthday today, so we'll be playing Bowie all week. Why not? Why not? Any good? I just use these excuses to play bands I like. I could have played Zeppelin all week too. It's Jimmy Page's birthday tomorrow. I know it's Elvis's birthday today too, but I'm not going to play Elvis all week. That's not quite as much my style. Playing Bowie all week long. Text line's open 512-447-3776 is the text line number. We're going to talk a little bit of Texas. I'd be remiss to not mention the Texas women's team did beat West Virginia 70-49 as well. I had that on my sheet, forgot to mention it. Madison Booker, another great game from them. The backcourt, Shaylee Gonzalez and Shea Holly are doing really well. Vic Schaefer's doing this team with Roy Harmon out there, still playing well in the Big 12 and continuing to put up good numbers. They did lose to Baylor to start off theirs, and they're doing well now. So come on, Texas men's. Take your cue and step up playing against. But we'll get. Tomorrow they got a game tomorrow against Cincinnati. Try and right that ship. Get back on there. Text line's up at 512-447-3776. We're asking about the ranking for Texas and the way too early. Says all happy with a 12 ranking. I think Texas will be higher than 12, but that's just me. Says the bigs need to be more physical down low. Yes, they do, and I know that Dylan Dessou's beat up. I know that Caden Shedrick's beat up, but you got to get down there and get physical. Nate asked, where's Chris Beard now? He's at Ole Miss. And again, I like Chris Beard. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he was doing any better than RT. I know some of you guys really don't like RT, but I'm not going to get on there. This texter says Terry equals great guy, great assistant coach. Terry equals not a head coach at a major university basketball program. I get that there's going to be people that think there's probably 17, maybe 15 good coaches. I don't think Chris Beard was a better coach than Rodney Terry. I just don't. I think he's at a lower level, probably a really good coach. I think he can get a lot out of guys that don't necessarily do it, but I don't know if he was ever going to – I don't know if he's going to win a title at a major school just because the politics of it and everything else. I don't know if he get exactly what he needed. Now, best of luck to him. Nothing negative about – I don't want to be negative about the guy. He was nice to me every time I dealt with him. The other personal problems aside, hopefully that wasn't as bad as some reports, but yeah. His offense to me was unwatchable. That was the reality of Chris Beard. His offense was unwatchable every time. It was just brutal to watch. And so I get that he's done well. I think he did well with some other people helping him out and helping that offense. And he gets the right staff around him. Who knows what's possible? But I am not an anti-RT guy. I'm a RT fan, and I think that he'll turn around. Plus, he's recruiting like crazy good right now as well. And recruiting is part of the battle at college sports, and if he continues to keep these recruits, I know it hurt this year that Ron Holland ends up going to the G League. If you have Ron Holland, this is a different team as well because now you add in another big scorer into this lineup, and now Brock Cunningham's probably not in your starting lineup. Ron Holland might be in there, or Ron Holland's playing minutes and adding more points for you. So it's just disappointing that he went to the G League, but at the same point, I'm not going to diminish RT. I will say Washington and Michigan tonight, the line is still moving towards Michigan more and more. 6-point favorite. If it goes past 7, I'd say take 7 all day long for Washington. I'd say take 7 for Washington all day long. I don't think it's going to get there, but if you find 7, I'd take that all day long. This matchup, I know as much as people are really basing it that the Michigan defensive line is going to be getting to Washington, and I think they will more than Texas did because it's not hard to do it more than Texas did. But I don't know if that's necessarily because I think Michael Penix Jr. is still going to put on a show. I think he knows what he's doing. He's an extremely good quarterback. I think he's going to put on a show and make some really good passes. They have the wide receivers. They have the talent on that offense. This offense is still going to go out there and move the ball. As much as you said when they got to Milroe's not the guy right now. I think he'll get better and better. He got better throughout the year, but that offense never was on the level that Washington's offense. They weren't close to what Washington's offense could do. On the flip side of that is where the problem is for Washington, which is they can't stop the run. They could not stop the run against Texas, and lucky for them, Sark wanted to keep throwing the ball, and it got them off the field at points where they could have just kept running, and they wouldn't have gotten into deeper passing situations. And for Michigan, that's kind of bread and butter for them on offense. And I feel like this may be a game where they just take what Washington gives them and just march down the field, control clock, and make Michael Penix have to be great to be in there. I think that it'll be a closer game than some people expect it to be. But at the same point, I just don't know if you can stop Blake Corum. I don't know if Washington can. Now, there was a part that they really said we're going to stop Quinn Ewers, where a lot of teams defending Texas this year said we're going to make Quinn Ewers beat us, and he did. I think Washington went with the approach we're going to make the young running backs beat us, and we don't trust that Sark's going to let them. So if we just play deep on receivers and don't let anything over the top all game, we should be fine. I think Michigan isn't necessarily, they don't need the explosive play. They're fine marching down the field. So we'll see if Washington changes up their game plan. I think they should somewhat to try and make Michigan make those big explosive plays. But if you let Blake Corum run for 6 yards a carry, it feels like it's going to be real hard to win this game. That's all I can say is it seems like it's going to be real hard. We know Dylan Johnson's a warrior trying to go out there and play tonight and trying to do what he can. But at the end of the day, Michael Penix Jr. is going to do what he does. We know great players do things in big games, but I just don't know. I just don't know if that's going to be able to happen. All right, I want to play this sound from Hook 'em Up with Ian Robbie talking about the Houston Texans versus the Cleveland Browns. It's some really good stuff from Rod. So I want to play you that. We're going to come back, get to more of your text messages, 512-447-3776 in just a few minutes. When this sound's over, we'll get back to that. So keep sending those texts in, and we'll keep it rolling here on the Sports Complex with a little Hook 'em Up replay.
All right. I brought this up earlier. We were talking about the Texans and the Browns and that matchup, and I believe that matchup will. And honestly, it'd be great if they could wait on awarding the Coach of the Year award until after that playoff game, that wild card game between the Browns and Texans, because I do think it's going to either Kevin Stefanski or it's going to DeMeco Ryans, as well it should. I mean, they have the two best cases for Coach of the Year in the NFL. First of all, Kevin Stefanski's argument is really strong. The Browns will be the second team in NFL history, or at least in the Super Bowl era, to make the playoffs starting at 5 different starting quarterbacks. The 84 Bears did it with Ditka. They started 5 different quarterbacks. They actually won the division that year too, and they lost in the NFC title game. I don't even know how that happens, but that's how good that Bears team was in 1984, how good that defense was. So, and of course, Walter Payton. So I think that matters as well. But that's the only other team in NFL history in Super Bowl era that has made it to the playoffs, starting at least 5 different starting quarterbacks. And Kevin Stefanski and these Cleveland Browns, they're going to be the second team to do so. They also have 26% of their salary cap currently on IR, which is a huge number. I mean, that's big. So they've been one of the most injury-riddled teams in the NFL, and they've played a historic amount of quarterbacks and yet still made it to the playoffs. So that's, I think, the best argument for Kevin Stefanski, and it's a damn good one. By the way, 8 teams in the Super Bowl era have actually made the playoffs, starting at least 4 different starting quarterbacks. The Browns will be that 8th team. None of those prior coaches have won Coach of the Year. None of the coaches that have coached their team to a playoff debut, a playoff game, and not a playoff win, because only one of those teams has won a playoff game, and that was the 84 Bears. But out of those 8 teams that have reached the playoffs, starting at least 4 different starting quarterbacks, none of them ended up winning Coach of the Year. Ditka did it 3 times, never won Coach of the Year. Marty Schottenheimer did it once and never won Coach of the Year. Mike Shanahan, Mike McCarthy, Bill O'Brien did it, never won Coach of the Year. So it doesn't guarantee Kevin Stefanski is going to win Coach of the Year just because he was able to coach his team to the playoffs starting that many starting quarterbacks. But here's why I think DeMeco Ryans has a really good case. Okay, so I went back and did deep dive, and I started thinking to myself, there's no way a head coach, a rookie head coach, first time they've ever been head coach in the NFL, with a rookie starting quarterback, has been able to win the division. They got a little help from, shout out to the Tennessee Titans, formerly Lovely Blue Oilers, who helped them by beating the Jags, helping the Texans clinch the division. But I just couldn't think of a time off the top of my head where a rookie head coach, rookie starting quarterback won the division in the same season. And I was damn near right. I was close. I went back as far as I could go. And the only other instance I found of a rookie head coach and a rookie starting quarterback of sorts winning their division and then going on to the postseason was in 1920. The Decatur Staleys. George Halas. Yes, George Halas was the head coach. That was his first year as a head coach.
God.
And his starting quarterback / fullback / halfback, whatever the hell he was Dutch Sterneman in 1920. That's as far back as I had to go. I had to go that far back to find the last time a rookie head coach in whatever they considered that to be in the NFL at that time, and a rookie starting quarterback both were able to win the division together. So it doesn't happen. My point is it's even more rare than having a team start at least 4 different starting quarterbacks and win the division. It's even more rare than a team starting at least 5 different starting quarterbacks and making it to the playoffs, which is what you saw here with the Browns, which is really, really impressive. But to have a rookie head coach and a rookie starting quarterback win the division, it just doesn't happen. So that, to me, is the case that I'll make for DeMeco Ryans. Is why he should.
I think it's a strong case. That game the other night, I don't want to say sealed the deal for me, but I thought Stefanski. But you're right. Can they wait until this game on Saturday afternoon? Be over about 7 o'clock, 6:30 on Saturday. That's the first game of Wild Card Weekend. To tell you just how, I mean, you just laid out how far ahead of schedule Houston is. Remember when Houston made the draft night trade, where they drafted C.J. Stroud, but then traded right back up to take Will Anderson?
Yeah.
And, I was a fan of it because I'm like, you need foundational pieces to your team to build around. And those are the 2 new faces of the franchise. And I thought ESPN did a nice job on Saturday night kind of marqueeing that. And unfortunately, Will Anderson's not 100%. He's not healthy. He's kind of battling an ankle injury right now. But he was out there. He leads all rookies in sacks and pressures and those kind of things. He has a chance to be the rookie of the year offensively or defensively. C.J. Stroud's going to be the rookie of the year offensively.
No doubt.
But remember that night, I mean, all the pundits, oh my gosh, Arizona's going to have the first and second pick next year, first and second pick. Texans turned that into the 21st pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 21st pick now for the Arizona Cardinals. It's a 10-win team.
It's pretty amazing.
So would you take Will Anderson with the 21st pick? Yes,
Yeah.
you would. So
Yeah.
that's what you gave up a 3rd round pick if you're Houston. So you gave up the 1st and the 3rd to get back up there to get Will Anderson. But you also subsequently made a trade that gives you a 3rd round pick. So Houston has a 1st round pick, and part of the reason they made that trade is they had Cleveland's picks. And it's funny that you're talking about these 2 teams because Cleveland, if you're a Houston fan, you're rooting for Cleveland to not be good. So that pick that you still own from them from the Deshaun Watson trade would be a high pick. Cleveland played that into the 27th pick.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the draft.
Come on now.
But at least you played the Arizona game pick into the 21st pick, so it's not such a blow, and you still have a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick at 55, and a 3rd round pick, and you have Will Anderson, and you have C.J. Stroud.
It's amazing.
So in the end, a move that was much criticized because they gave up too much. If healthy, Will Anderson's a great player. And Jonathan Grenard is one of the sack leaders in the NFL. You have your pair of pass rushers in Houston. You got Derek Stingley in the defensive backfield. You've got Laramie Tunsil, and you have your quarterback, Rod.
Yeah.
And Nico Collins, God love him, has turned into a heck of a player.
He's been fantastic this year. Yeah, it was only too much if you didn't hit.
Yes,
it was only too much to give up for Will Anderson, trade back up to get him. If you didn't hit, you hit. So it wasn't too much.
It wasn't too much.
It's like the whole argument about the LA Rams, right? F them picks. Yeah, F them picks. It wasn't too much to give up because they won a Super Bowl. So no matter what decisions they made, draft picks to give up, salary cap hell, it's all worth it when you win it all.
And the Rams are back in the playoffs, right? Back in right now, and
Yeah.
as hot as we said, the Rams have won 7 of 8 into the playoffs, and the one loss was in overtime in Baltimore.
Yeah.
They're playing great football, so they're back, and they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, if you're a Houston fan, you can't complain. You've got you get your foundational player on offense and defense.
Oh, by the way, I believe they're top 5 in salary cap space going into next season.
Yeah, Houston.
They're the only, I believe, the only playoff team that's top 5 in salary cap space.
Well, that's why I mentioned earlier that.
Washington's number 1 with $85 million. Tennessee $79 million. This is all based on the salary cap being about $242 million, which we think it's going to be. Washington $85 million. Tennessee $79 million. Houston $74 million. Indy $72 million. Damn, that division is going to be loading up in the offseason. Then New England was $72 million. So New England, sexy job too, because you got some salary cap space.
And that's why, and this is further stating why Nick Caserio may be the executive of the year. Because again, if you consider what he's done over a 2-year period, trading Deshaun Watson, getting out from under that mess, the negative headlines and just the bad PR, and finding someone to take him and give you a bounty of picks that you've then used to rebuild the team. And you didn't have to sign to that mega dumb contract that the Browns did. And you drafted your quarterback, and you drafted your future defensive captain, and you still have 3, all your draft picks this year. You have a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round pick, and you've got money to spend in free agency. And that's what D'Amico Ryans has done. He, because I thought Nick Casario has done a great job of laying the foundation. But between C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans, they overperformed it.
Exactly.
To where you're
way ahead of schedule now. You're like, hold up, what?
It was kind of similar but different to Sark with Texas in year 3. This, to win the Big 12 is what you wanted. You played into the national championship game, and you beat Alabama or into the national championship semifinal, and you played and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. These things accelerate your recruiting ability.
Everything.
Because you're able to recruit, because as you said, what do you recruit against at Texas? They've got the NIL. They're developing players for the NFL. They're playing for championships. They're playing in big games on television, which is what all these young guys want. Okay, then what do you not like about Texas?
Exactly.
Not much. And that's kind of what Texans fans can say about the Texans, because you always talk and our audience gets to learn about the 5-year window. Well, your 5-year window's just opened.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a quarterback on a rookie contract who's going to if he stays healthy, is going to way outperform that. And you've got all that cap space, all your draft capital, and you're hosting a playoff game this year. I mentioned that the Texans rebrand, because when you're going to change your uniforms, you got to apply for that a year in advance.
Yeah,
you got to inform the league.
Yeah.
So that they can sell all the current stuff.
Merchandising and all that, yeah.
Well, Houston's going to be announcing and coming out in the spring with brand new uniforms and a whole new, maybe even a new logo. The whole idea was it was so ugly and toxic for so long with Jack Easterby and, the whole Deshaun Watson mess that, Cal McNair, the marketing firms told him, look, man, you got to rebrand this whole thing.
Seriously.
Reboot it.
Yep.
It's hit rock bottom. And look where they are. Now they're going to come out with new uniforms, and they may have a playoff win under their belt because they're 2.5-point underdogs to Cleveland at home, but they could beat Cleveland.
Yeah, they could. If your young quarterback plays a great game, which he has played multiple times this year.
And I'm hoping they may get Noah Brown back for this game. So you'd have Noah Brown and Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz and Devin Singletary to try to attack this Browns defense. And you're at home. By the way, speaking at home, I'm watching right now on ESPN the Stephen A. Smith show. They're in NRG Stadium. They're standing on the field at NRG Stadium where the Michigan Wolverines will play the Washington Huskies tonight for the national championship. That is also where on Saturday the Texans will play the Cleveland Browns in a wild card playoff game. Pretty cool. Of course, the Cowboys will host the Green Bay Packers. Mike McCarthy's old team coming.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B. Get you back. It's talking about the big game tonight. We are mere minutes away. We're less than an hour away from the big national championship game, Washington versus Michigan tonight. It'll be a good game. If you got any final score predictions, throw in on the text line. Send that in 512-447-3776. Love you on the text line. Nate says, I love riding Terry. He was only curious about beer. That's what I tell you. Just give my opinions. WPI Parts Guy says that RT will be fine. It's early, not in panic mode yet. All right. I'm with you on that one. Texter says, I agree with most of your opinions, but RT is not better than Beard. RT is like Charlie Strong, good dudes, but in over their heads at this university. Same with Shaka. Okay. I'm going to try and be nice about this. If you're going to say those names, you need to throw Tom Herman in there. If you're going to say those names, first of all, comparing Charlie Strong to RT is crazy. That's a blatant miss on that one. If you want to say Shaka was a very good coach, coached at very high levels, coaching at a high level at Marquette again, was not able to deal with the boosters and donors. RT can deal with the boosters and donors. RT can recruit. RT is doing everything that Chris Beard was doing here. He wasn't able to get a building built. Chris Beard, all thanks for him for getting the Moody for Texas sports. All thanks to him for that. That was totally a Chris Beard thing. But to say that a 3-loss season right now against the defending national champions, a top 5 Marquette team, and then a bad loss to Texas Tech, I'll give you that one. A team that went to the Elite 8 last season, that he took them to the Elite 8 after he took over halfway through. He took them to, won the Big 12 championship after everything that went down, and all of that, put all that together, did that, still put in a good recruiting class, great recruiting class coming in next year. To say that he's no good because he's lost to Texas Tech, he's no Chris Beard. Chris Beard didn't get us to an Elite 8. Chris Beard didn't get us a Big 12 championship. I know it was in a short time, but it's crazy to say those things, to completely give up on RT right now. And I appreciate you saying Herman too. I'm looking out for you. You can't say, all right, the 3 black coaches who've coached at Texas, because I know that's not what you mean. But you can't say, well, the 3 black coaches couldn't coach at Texas. You can't say that because that's just not a good look. So don't say that. But I get it. That's why I'm glad you said Herman too. I know that's not what you meant. So I didn't want to throw the aspersion on you that you said that, but throwing RT and Charlie Strong, they're not the same thing. Charlie Strong was brought in to clean up the program after Mac Brown And they were hoping that he was going to be a good coach. And he just wasn't a really good coach. RT's a really good coach. RT's a really good recruiter. RT's a good guy. RT's good at everything. The question is, can he get a Texas team that historically struggles to get over the top, that no one has ever got to a championship game at Texas, not one person? Can he get them to a higher level than they've ever gotten at Texas? I think that's the question for him, and that's what's difficult. And I think anyone could. That's crazy. That's crazy. Last time they were in the Elite Eight, they have 4 NBA players. Serge Jabari Rice is one of the best players on that team. He got cut from the Spurs already. Like the talent on that team was good last year, but it was not a team that anyone could have taken to the Elite Eight. It just wasn't. Dylan Nassau played out of his mind. I just disagree with you on that one. I have a lot more respect for RT. I think the guy is doing a great job. I think he had a bad game. If it continues to go downhill, then I'll have to reconsider things. I don't think it will. Text line is still open. We're going to take our last break and come back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex, wrapping things up here. Hope everybody enjoys the game tonight. Has a good time watching. I hope whoever you're rooting for, Michigan or Washington, if you're a Texas fan that wants to see Washington win because they beat Texas, good on you, and hopefully they'll win. And if you're a type of fan that just wants to see Michael Penix Jr. pay for ending our season, then go blue. Whatever you guys want to see tonight, I'm with you. I'll be watching, but it's just a little tear in my eye. Be watching the game tonight. Appreciate everybody playing along on the text line, having a good time. We will get to more. We'll carry this conversation about Rodney Terry over to tomorrow too. We just ran out of time, but I appreciate you guys being a part of it. We will get into more of it as we keep going. But we got to get out of here. So until tomorrow, be safe, be kind, keep your underwear clean. See you right back here on the Sports Complex.